recently back home in the U.S. Now, Matt Ray, do you have this problem when you say home? When you say home, what do you mean? If you're like back home, do you mean back in Australia, or do you mean back in America, or does it depend? What does home mean in your situation?
Ooh, it has become back in Australia. I don't know when the
Okay,
line crossed, but
so
I
if
did
if you were to
recently notice that.
if every year you go to Austin and you couldn't say Austin, what would you say? You would say every year we go to
The old country.
the old. Oh, I love it.
I actually did. I did call the U.S. the old country the other day.
I'm gonna
Um,
totally start doing that. That's amazing. Just
but
the old
Kote, you
country.
live in the old country. See, Australia is newer than
Yeah, I was
America,
gonna say that
so
phrase does not travel. I think that is
that
very.
doesn't
You have to
travel.
be.
You
Okay.
don't get
You have
to
to
be
be
Okay.
very
the
specific
new
where you
old
use
But
it.
wait,
country.
wait, wait. I thought, and then I'm gonna get back if I can remember what I was gonna ask about earlier. Oh yeah, I remember now. But I thought the old country was not indicative of the country being old, but the place that you previously came from. And so the aid, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe we can ask Chatty G what the answer is. But I feel like old country is more like it used to be our country, and so therefore
No,
you can swap
No,
in.
I think
No,
for me,
you
okay,
the
guys are
old
wrong.
country
all right.
was
Well, I'm
defined.
gonna erase that from my head.
Yeah,
That does not apply.
I'm pretty sure Godfather 2 cemented the old country in my brain when I was like
Okay,
12,
okay.
right?
And it indicates the age of the country, not how long ago you were in it.
uh, I don't think everyone carries a relative timestamp to your persona in their mind everywhere they go. They're like,
Well,
oh,
see,
so
this is
Tekote, the old country is.
yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I think it might have something to do with what is it, the epoch? Like, if you really get into programming, you realize everything's just relative to like 1972 or whatever the date
Yeah,
is, right?
something like
So
that.
you're much so
I
okay.
will say a quick listen. I was 100% with Matt, but now referring to my friend Gemini, old country refers to the country where a person was born or lived before moving to a new country. It is commonly used by immigrants or their descendants to refer to their ancestral homeland. So,
I,
Kote,
I,
as always, you're right, but no one really uses that. It's like the
Ah,
liberal arts, right? It's like
oh no.
congratulations. Congratulations, you Mr. Liberal Arts, using your M dash correctly. You're right, but that's not how we use it.
yes,
So
yes.
take
Exactly.
those points however you wish.
And
Yeah.
Gemini's like, the old country is a hole in the ground where they dug up my silicon.
Right. Because it does go on to say this is where Matt and I were. It is frequently associated with European countries, particularly those from which numbers of immigrants came from to North America in the past: Italy, Ireland, Germany,
Okay.
Eastern Europe. So we would call that the Godfather reference. So
That's right.
again, Cote,
Okay.
stop reading, and getting educated. Start watching more movies. That's where Matt and I learn references
Fair enough.
correctly.
Fair
I
enough.
think the Godfather trilogy is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Skip the third one.
Yeah.
So okay, so this is good because I think what I can do in according to as you two say the Godfather definition, I think there is an experience I can bring from the old country that is going to start to be useful in the new country in America because I read that they're the TSA, the security people at the airports, they're experimenting, and I like this idea of the TSA experimenting. They're just trying it out. Maybe they've got like a fast feedback loop in place. They've set up some KPIs. They're monitoring what's happening. They might even, I don't know if they got that big balls guy to work with them. They might have some charts, some generative AI. I think he's at the Social Security,
A
so he
web
probably doesn't
dashboard, you
deal in
think, for
TSA.
sure? Definitely some type of web
Yeah.
dashboard.
You've got an information radiator maybe going on.
A
data
Nagios
lake.
and a graphite dashboard. Nagios monitoring
Oh,
graphite dashboard.
always. The app,
Has to be how
the
it's been
Splunk,
built.
the Splunk guy is in there or gal, and they're like, have you considered? And they're like, no, we have not. See you later. We've got that on there. So, but they're filling up the dashboards with experiments that you don't have to take your shoes off when you go through airport security. And I think I say this to my fellow Americans: congratulations, welcome to the new era. And I just want to pass on some tips that because we've had this over in the old country for some time now. The biggest concern I have, I'm assuming it's going to go through. I don't know if it's going to require some congressional thing. I think they missed the train with the big beautiful bill. There's not going to be like the small beautiful shoebox or something like that. I can't come up with a name for it, but maybe, I don't know, hopefully it doesn't have to go through Congress. But let's assuming it goes through, your biggest concern is going to be, I know you, Matt Ray, you must think about this all the time. Do I wear sneakers that have a low top, or do I wear quasi boots? And they ask me if it has a high top. Because when you're going through, if you're wearing boots in the Netherlands, you want to, there's some techniques I've developed. Because the problem is you're wearing these boots, they lace up, and you're just like, God damn it, now I got to take my boots off. And of course you have frequent traveler hubris, where the words that you never want to say to an airport security guard is,
do you know who I am?
Well, there's that. But is that like, this never sets off an alarm. It works all the time when I do it. Right.
Never,
and so like,
never say never.
So like you're going towards the, you don't have to take your shoes off unless you're wearing some like, you know, I don't know, what would you call these kind of shoes that they're like shoes that have like a top.
Yeah,
I
like
don't know,
boots.
high top.
I know what you're talking about, like a, you know, kind of a Timberland hiking boot kind of style,
Yeah,
right?
And you're like, I'm trying to fit in 7 years ago, so I do one roll up on my pants, right? But this kind of exposes that it's that. But when I go to the security line, I'm going to want to roll down the pants because I want them to think it's a dress shoe, because I don't want to all of a sudden I'm putting my stuff up and then I've got to like awkwardly unlace the shoes and do it, right? So this is, you got to think through this strategy. Now, this is where, and maybe Brandon, you have some input here too, but I want to get some input from you, as always at the beginning of the show, Matt Ray, is I've started to think, and I did it on this trip up to Glasgow, maybe what I'll do is I'll wear sneakers or trainers or whatever the fuck you want to call them wherever you are, and I'm going to pack my nice shoes in a bag just so I get through the security and I don't have to take my shoes off, which is a big violation of Cote Traveler Tips circa 2011, where I was just like, don't plan for the security line. But I feel like people might have to start considering this. What, you know, if you don't take your footwear off to go through the security line, I guess what I'm trying to say is the old country wisdom is you still need to consider the footwear that you're wearing. It's just, it has a little bit more freedom.
I feel like this is not going to apply in the United States. I feel like I just feel like we're just all in, because obviously living in Texas, there's going to be plenty of people wearing cowboy boots, which are like well over the size of your high top, you know, dress shoe. So it's like, I don't think anyone's going to be told to take, if I'm just saying, if they start requiring only people with cowboy boots to have to take off their shoes, this policy is not going to last long. I just don't, it's not going to go well. So I think they're going to be like, get a rope. Is a shoe, right? A shoe is a shoe. So I don't know, Coach, I just think like you really can't just like, I mean, can't you just walk up and just like keep your, you know, just let your jeans or your pants just float over the shoe, you know, and just say nothing and just walk through?
No. The answer is yes, and as I'm fond of using that phrase, is like, it's one of those things where, like, you know, 80 to 90% of the time, yes. And then, you know, and you feel like you've got a victory, you're walking through there, and then you hear this person behind you and they're like, Meneer, or, you know, which is sir, like, and they want to ask you if you've got boots on, and then you, which is to say you're like, God damn it, I almost made it. So close. And then you've got to go back.
I think you can just say, no, these aren't boots. And then proclaim just, you're like, you could just sort of feign like, I didn't, you know, I mean, a boot means something different to me. Right. And just, you know, that, I think you have a lot. That's a lot
very
of
American
room,
answer.
Right?
Yes.
I would say the shoe, and we should put this in, you'll have to send me a picture. The shoe that you showed, I do not believe I would describe as a boot.
Oh,
so that would be my technicality.
I do. You know, you're making me explore this thing. Is I think, and yes, I mean, being a Texan, yes, I would say that's not a boot. That's like a confused shoe, is what's going on there. But like
high top.
I think it's only in. Is this true? Skipple is the only place I go through where there's ambiguity about if I need to take those shoes off or not. Like it's either like full off, TSA pre, which is no off. They don't care, right?
Yep.
But then there's some, I think when I go through UK airports, they don't care, right? They're not checking your shoes. You can go through without shoes. But anyhow, we've gone really deep on this topic, which I appreciate. But this is what I want to like bring to my fellow Americans is, if this goes through, there's going to be an awkward couple of years where you've got to sort this out. You've got to see which kind of culture emerges from the TSA, and it might be regional, right? Like But really, this is where you're going to have to start paying attention to. And now, again, it's better than having to always take your shoe off, but there's still going to be shoe concerns.
I speak for the land of freedom. We're not going to have this problem. It's over. There's no one's taking off their boots, their shoes, their Chelsea boots, as I'm looking up for other names of your artisanal shoe. And also, Cote, you can solve this problem by just buying low top dress shoes. I think it's like, I'm sure they have those in Europe. It can be done. So
I've gone full on like curmudgeonly dad mode. I'm just like tennis shoes on the flight.
There you go. Even better.
Yeah. I like Brandon. I think you have the ultimate American solution, which is just buy some fucking new shoes. Like
that's right. Amazon Prime Day. Load it up, baby. Get yourself some low top dress shoes.
That's right. Well, speaking of Amazon Prime Day, the next topic has no relation to it at all, but I love a terrible segue. I went back and reread. I didn't look up the provenance of the author. And I wanted to get some input from you two on this, because I feel like I'm both too close and too far from the topic. But I read the article that maybe virtual machines, VMs are back. There's a lot more involved in the Kubernetes world. And you know me, I joked about this morning when I was talking with some people, is like, I don't like to talk about Kubernetes. I get a little emotional about it. I think maybe I haven't figured out if I'm more emotional about the lack of comments in JSON or Kubernetes, but they're neck and neck. There's something going on there. But I do know that, in my Broadcom world over in the VMware or VCF, as they call themselves, I know they're doing a lot of interesting, I don't know if it's interesting, fun stuff with Kubernetes. It seems like you can go both ways. You can manage your like Kubernetes through like a VMware way of doing things, or you can manage your VMware through a Kubernetes way of doing things. And I haven't decided yet who this is a victory for, but it does seem like a major shift in things. And so that's what I wanted to ask you two, who are much closer to the, I guess by definition, it's not the metal, closer to the plastic, wherever this infrastructure thing is. Like
closer to the virtualization, to the hypervisor,
the virtual metal. I think. Yes. And like is this are the VMs and the VKs are the whatever the Kubernetes, are they coming together? What's going on? Or was this headline just like bait for stuff?
I think it was bait for you, Cote.
Oh. Here I was considering my Chelsea boots, and now I've been baited.
You know what? We're gonna get some macchiato drinking, Chelsea boot wearing, hipster tech guy to comment on this. I think this is just a realization that has been years in progress that VMs aren't going anywhere. And to people running Kubernetes, they wanted to put all in on the Kubernetes platform. They wanted everything going in there, kick it to fit, make it work. Whether it's Kate Native trying to bring in serverless, WASM running on top of this. People have decided that people, meaning the industry, has decided that Kubernetes needs to be the control plane for everything. That way we can standardize everything to Kubernetes and call it a day. But the VMs were just kind of sitting over there. Some might call them legacy, some might call them profit centers. They were just working away, and all these sysadmins were like, hey, look, I've been my VMware certs have expired. I've been learning all this Kubernetes stuff. Why can't we just move that stuff here too? And so I think that's where we are. Is KubeVirt has gotten stable enough where, and the Broadcom shaking their customers' business plans a little bit has kind of accelerated this, and so we've got kind of this perfect storm, or at least a strong wind behind our backs to get more virtualization loads onto Kubernetes.
Yeah, and I think the only thing to kind of even add there is like the only question remains is just like, what are you going to use to manage your VMs? And Cote, I'll let you in a second. You can walk through. It's like VMware, shockingly enough, has a variety of options, including some Kubernetes options. You can enlighten us about Cote in a minute. And then, of course, there are a variety of other ways to run VMs. But like to the broader point, it's just sort of like, and maybe like we should just always say this at the beginning. I think we probably did, but maybe other people say it with us now. It's like nothing really ever leaves. These VMs are not going anywhere. The VMs are going to be here. I mean, just like the mainframe, it's like they're going to be here forever. So just decide how you want to run them, pick your platform of choice, and just like make it all work. That's the process. So I don't know.
This is a very, very growth-oriented yes and mentality to enterprise IT. It's not zero sum. It's always expanding. You know, once you boot it up, it's going to stay there forever. Everything's fine, right? I think, sure. Well, you know, I am, I guess, maybe intellectually happy to report that I have nothing to say about Kubernetes. Not in my bailiwick anymore. It's in another part of the company.
Newsletter. Yes,
they're doing great. They're like wonderful. I got a lot to say about platform as a service, application programming, all that kind of stuff. But whatever infrastructure you want to run it on, vaya con Dios. Have fun with it and enjoy it. I'm trying to, this way I can fully embody the, you know, we've heard over the past, what is this, 2025, maybe 15 years about how these application developers just don't want to mess with infrastructure. And I think this is finally our opportunity to be like, you're fucking right, we don't, right? Like, we don't want to have anything to do with infrastructure. Do it for us, please. And I think that would be, that'd be wonderful. We can have people infrastructuring all over the place in their own area.
Pretty much. I mean, the workloads weren't leaving. You know, no matter how much people wanted them to, you know, get into a container and be like everything else, they were just like, you know what? If we could just put it on the same control plane, everyone would be happy, and we could get back to, you know.
Sounds great.
Maybe that would be like the next. Someone can do a little homework and for us and be like, at the next KubeCon, maybe someone can count up how many of the presentations are just people explaining how they manage VMs with.
Well, if they are though, I mean, to me as a conference, you know, attendee, I liked those sessions because chances are good that's not going to be a vendor talking about Kubernetes. It's going to be a customer talking about how they fit it into their real workloads, and they're gonna talk about real world use cases. Which, you know, at the end of the day, I'd rather hear those sorts of stories because, I mean, they're going to have technical tracks where people can, you know, talk about, you know, feature, you know, release 1.2 where everything got better. But I'd rather hear, if I'm going to a conference like this, I want to hear something I can't just read out of the release notes, you know, or a good blog article.
I really enjoy this. Maybe this is just I'm the only audience for it, but I like a good starting presentation when they're like, well, here's why we couldn't make this thing a container. Because I feel like that always introduces like a lot of like interesting stories. Like, turns out in 1963 we built this thing and this thing, and then you're like, what is it for? And it's like, it manages farms, but this farm switch is like all of humanity depends on this one thing. This is why we have milk, right? And we cannot move it to a container. This is why we have milk. Right. And it's like, but it's like, that's how the story started. And you're always like, every time I walk into the presentation, like, I was like, didn't know all of milk actually depends on this weird, obscure thing that can only run on a virtual machine. And then of course they get into like talking about what they actually do. But like, those are the stories I just enjoy those. I love those. I'm always like, oh man, the world is crazy. There's a lot of weird software. So there it is. Please, you know, start your talk that way. It's a great icebreaker, at least for me. I enjoy
That's what I'm saying. I want to, you know, that's how people end up watching like those, you know, YouTube channels of nothing but like forks being made in a factory. You know, you're like, whoa, check it out. You know, they've got the automated systems. I never thought about that. You know, meanwhile,
it's where forks come from.
Exactly. That's going to be my next talk. And then the byline will be like, this has nothing to do with Linux processes.
That would be an example of like nightmare is the wrong problem, but a type of conference talk I encounter over the years and probably will. That's kind of like one of the biggest head shakers is like, I'll be like at a conference.
Why
and
is he talking about forks?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'll be at a conference and I'll be like, you know, I wanted to submit a talk about how you do some technical thing or how a process works, and they didn't accept it. And then this fucker over here is talking about where forks come from. And I'm just like, how did this talk end up here?
Well,
like,
and the worst part would be if both talks get accepted, they're scheduled at the same time and you've got an empty room.
and yeah, you're like, I have a talk about how you can manage VMs with the Kubernetes control plane based on 8 to 13 open source solutions that I've gathered together. And I've got a YAML for my YAML and still no comments in JSON. And then this guy over here has got 300 people in the room talking about forks, not the open source type, but like manufacturing them.
And you know what? And after the conference, the only talk that anyone's going to bring up with a non-industry person is, so I was at this conference and they talked about forks.
God damn, there's still some CFPs open I can resubmit to.
I'm telling you, that's
you should
the
try to
angle
combine
you need.
the thing, you know, you see a lot of people do it on like TikTok or something. You should just have like a continuous video behind you instead of the slides of just like the machines that make forks. It's like hypnotic, right? I find it like, I don't know why it works, but like, it's like your eyes are sort of occupied and then you're listening to someone talk about something. So it's like, you should just walk up and be like, guys, I didn't do any slides and I know it can get kind of boring. So watch this. It's just, you know, an hour-long clips of like machines building forks and knives. It's like, people would be into that. I think we would all like that.
This is homework for the listeners. If you can find me some sort of video, preferably on a loop of forks being manufactured, that will be my new Zoom background. So next time I'm on a call, there'll just be animated forks happening. And my coworkers will be like, what's up with the forks? I'm like, what forks?
Yeah, you'll be like, I don't know. It's a bedroom back here. What are you guys seeing? Have we paid our Zoom bill?
You have your work. Listeners, you have your homework for the week.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know, I think you've used the Claude Code thing, right, Brandon? You use all this stuff, and I used it once. I really appreciated the ASCII art. I was like, superb. I love that. And well, one, I'm hoping we're going to see a return to ASCII art stuff with all this command line things. That would be nice. But I haven't really used it seriously, but it has occurred to me, all this programming that I'm doing. I'm very optimistic about programming. I was talking to some people today. I was like, if it wasn't for AI, I wouldn't be able to get back into programming. But is like that going to be ruined if I start using Claude Code? Because now I won't be able to use it myself because Claude Code's going to return it. Like,
no, I think
where does Claude Code fit into all of this?
I think it will expand your programming to make your projects. Even you can do even bigger projects. Is kind of the next level.
That's the intention.
So I had a very similar kind of feeling. It's like I read about, and I'm going to lump them all together. So Claude Code is sort of the main, let's call it command line interface for coding, but Gemini CLI has just come out, and I think it does similar things, although I haven't tested that as well. So I had a similar feeling. I installed it for the first time, right? And I just felt like this was like a 20-year step backwards, or maybe 40-year step backwards. Like you're just in a terminal. And it does do like this incredible stuff in the terminal, stuff you totally forgot. Like it makes all these different colors and ASCII, and like it can kind of like make it was just crazy what can be done in the terminal. And at first it's like, well, this is sort of a waste. Like, why would I do this? Because I don't really get it, right? But what I kind of learned is it's interesting because one, you know, for the most part, the way you do is you sort of like get inside like a folder that you want to do a project in. And then the more files and the bigger your project, the better it is. Because it sort of can, you know, Cursor will look at everything, but Claude like reads like everything, you know, so you can kind of say, and the place that's really shined was like, I was trying to update an old app. So in this case, it's like, I'm not just trying to add like a method or two to a small function. I've got a ton of files. I'm not sure what needs to be done. I just know I need to go from this version to this version, right? And you just kind of, and this is like the idea of like, it really is the agent. You sort of just give it this massive, like, read everything. Okay. And then it's kind of, I think things that you would like, Cote, it sort of comes back to you with like an outline of the plan, right? It's sort of like, okay, I've read everything. Now I'm going to do this. First, I'm going to analyze for this. I'm going to solve this problem. Then I'm going to solve this problem. Then I'm going to solve this problem, right? And it kind of tells you, right, as you're going along. And it will start to ask you questions like, do you want me to do this? Yes or no? And you can also, and because it's like right on the command line, it can kind of do everything. It's like, you want me to move all these files for you? You just say yes. And then you can even answer yes, like to do all the stuff for this session. So it's sort of like you're giving it, like, if you will, this agent, like control over everything. And it's almost like it can see more, it can do more, and then it can start to do stuff. Like if you think about it, like all the IDEs, like everything can be done in the command line. But when you don't have to do it, like Claude Code, like knows how to do everything on the command line. So it'll just pop up and be like, can I run this command? Can I run this command? Can I run this command? Right. And it's sort of like, And so it's sort of like it's just doing this in mass for you. So it kind of takes like, I think the place where you're maybe doing like a small project, maybe you just want like help with like a few methods in something you're doing, to like a really big project where it can kind of get the whole thing going. And then maybe, right, once it's all going, you open up your favorite IDE, probably Visual Code in this case, and you can start to get in there and do some, like, if you will, almost scalpel work. But then again,
Tuning.
tune it, and it can kind of ride along with you. So then you open it up and you're looking at a specific file, and maybe you're making some minor changes, but it's sort of like, if you will, it's done all of this for you. So it's like one of these things, like ideally, and I've been even using a little bit with Cursor. I mean, ideally, you kind of, and I think this is where it's converging, right? It's like you'd kind of want like agent command line mode for like mass changes and big things, right? And then you want to like quickly move into like, okay, now give me IDE mode because I want to do like really small targeted changes. So that part's a little bit, I won't say it's wonky. It's just sort of like it, you know, it's not perfect, right? But it's getting close. So I'm a fan. And I also think too, it's like beyond just coding, for anyone that has like, I was doing like some cleanup of my Mac, right? Like my Mac, I think I've said on the show, was sort of like, had all these different packages and tools, and like everything was like conflicting. So I just asked it, I was like, hey, look at all the stuff I have configured. Tell me what's wrong. Came back with an entire plan. Like, and it kind of gave me some really good instructions. It was like, you know, it's almost, I mean, it feels like it's personal, but it's like, okay, Brandon, you know, use brew install for this. Okay. Now when you do Python, use pip. Now when you do Node, use like NVM, right? And it was like very specific. It was like, and then when you do this, create virtual environments. And then it's like, it's almost like I've cleaned all this up for you now. Okay, now that I've cleaned it up for you, I need you to use the right tool and package manager. And I was like, I was sort of like, you're right. Because like when you're typing stuff in and off the web, you're just like, you'll always see like the brew install command, right? Like, oh, like copy this and do this. But that's where you get into trouble. And it was like, this thing was like, oh, it was, so it kind of taught me. I was like, you're right. I'm sorry. I almost had to apologize to Claude. You're right. I've done bad things. I was just cutting and pasting before. Now I understand. I'll use the right package manager for the right environment. So I mean, just lots of stuff like that you can do.
It was basically like, Brandon, we need to talk about how many versions of Python you have installed.
It did.
Let's sort through that.
I kid you not. I have that exact. I could show you that thread, right?
Yeah.
And
is it a?
It doesn't stop at Python. Java. Oh my gosh, a whole nother shit show of problems. So and then you'll like it, Coach.
Is it more of a concierge or like a therapist? Is it, you know, trying to
anything.
does it care why you're doing these things, or it's just
you
like,
can, of
Brandon,
course,
we're gonna, you know, yes sir, let's get
you
this
can
fixed
adjust
for
it.
you,
You
sir.
can tell it to be nice to you. You can tell it to glaze you a little bit.
I'm gonna tell it to treat me like Brandon.
However you want it, you can adjust it with all these things. You're like, whoa, Claude, like, let's, you know, how about a little bit more flattery? Let's, you know, I don't like
I like where you're going,
direct, right?
I like where you're going, Matt Ray. It's almost like, I can't think of the name where you apply this in other things, but if you could get to like, I guess the system prompt, you could say like, you know, in addition to all this cool stuff, I want you to be like a cognitive behavior therapist for me. And kind of just inject that in there, give it a persona. I feel like it's going through.
Yeah, there's some sort of line that we've crossed here, where, you know, the Rubicon, where instead of treating our AI like our junior developer, now we're treating it as our mentor. Right, we're like, you know, can you please tell me how to be better at computers? And you know, the computer's like,
can you type that in, Brandon?
Never ask.
I was gonna say,
I thought you never asked, Brandon. Knock this junk off, please.
I was just saying,
you're killing me.
Final pitch though for you, Cote, specifically is like, of course, MCP servers. Like, it's, if you will, before it was kind of like you have to do like Claude desktop and like you have to install all the MP. It's kind of awkward. So this I think has much simpler integration. Also too, it can help you just do all of it. You can be like, install, like, I know you have like the D&D thing, right? I don't know if you still have that, but like, you know, basically install the MCP server of choice. It gets it all running for you, and it will help you use that. So that's another like fun little project.
Side project. Last question: can you only do code stuff with it, or can you do anything with it?
You can do anything. It's just like using. You can. It's just honestly, it's like using regular Claude. It's
like a command line Claude desktop or Chat GPT app.
Yeah. So maybe like another thing would be like, take all your PDFs. Maybe you got like, you know, I don't know how many you have. Like maybe you got 20 or something, right? Put all those in the directory. Be like,
maybe
read
20. Yeah.
20 only, right? Whatever you have now, but you can also just say like read everything, right? Just put it all in, because that's one thing I do like about it is like put everything that's relevant to like something you're working on, and just be like first thing, because there's a command like init, and it'll just sort of like read it'll sort of like get instantly up to date on everything that's in that folder, and then from that you can start to direct it to do a project.
Okay,
right?
okay.
So,
Now I think I'm glad I asked this. I think I've wrapped my head around it, because they should have called it command line Claude. Right? Like it's really just Claude on the command line, not like this is for coding. It's just like the most logical use cases to apply, not logical, but the first use case is like for programming, but it doesn't have to be programming. It basically can just like run stuff on your command line.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like Claude Desktop, right? I mean, it is kind of like it's similar to that. I mean, you're just in a command line, and you just have more. If you're, and not everyone listening to this will be. It's like, because once you're, it's like, I don't know, like the desktop apps, like they just feel constricting sometimes. This is what's kind of nice, where it's just like, oh, it can just see everything on the folder immediately, right? So go ahead.
Oh, I like how we've come, full circle here, where, in the beginning there was the command line, and we slowly moved up into Windows, and then everything was on the web, and then AI's foot in the door was a chat prompt in a web app. And then there was the desktop, and then we're back to like, all power users eventually end up back on the CLI, and so that's where we are.
And I think the magic of the chat interface in the CLI, especially, is sort of like when you don't really have to like remember everything. Like you don't have to like remember every Unix command when you're just answering questions, yes or no. Right? Like it lets Claude kind of like do anything. You know what I mean? So it's not constrained by UI. It's like, it'll just tell you. It's like
it's not safely sandboxed,
right? Well, it will. Now it will ask, and you can constrain it, right? But what's nice though is it's sort of like it doesn't have to wait on like, oh, there's now a new option for like bold or italics. I got to add a new icon. It's just like, all right, here's everything. This is what I'm about to do. You want me to do it? Yes. No. Yeah. Right. And that's it. And it's sort of like, but it's giving you, it's like a natural conversation. It's sort of like just telling you all this stuff that you can never build a UI. Like like knowing that, oh, I need a button for this. I need a button for this. It's sort of like, and because you're just, for the most part, you have to say yes or no, or provide it some like 2 or 3 sentences of descriptions. It's like, yeah, the CLI works a lot better. It actually is. I mean, to your point, Matt, it's sort of like more natural, and I don't have to remember all the crazy Unix commands. It'll just tell me.
Yeah, which links back to an article that I think I'm not sure I dropped it in the backlog, but it's completely relevant. This initiative called Open CLI, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, I know what that's for. Where it's the intention is to standardize CLI flags to make them easier to parse, and the whole you're like, well, we've got a couple of different tools of different languages, but if you can throw in all those, MCP style hooks where, you have kind of metadata around your CLI where you're explaining, how these things used, examples, and you get more rigorous about it, it makes it easier for automation to onboard. I mean, this was just kind of, I don't know if it's just announced. It's the first time I came across it, but I'm like, this is actually going to be pretty relevant. Maybe this isn't, maybe this isn't the final, maybe this is the A2A of CLI initiatives, but I think it's a good look at where we're headed.
Right. Well, I haven't read it, but I like the idea, because me. Well, one of my ongoing ideas is like, why write an additional automation layer when you could just fix the thing you're automating?
Yeah.
And so maybe if we can just fix the command line, and you don't have to, like, even earlier today, I was like, I wonder if this is 1 hyphen or 2 hyphens. And like, I don't even know what the distinction would be. And don't get me started on the bash RC versus bash _ profile and like what the distinction between these things are. But maybe just like we should just stop inventing like the 10th layer of networking, we should just fix networking at the lower level. We should just fix the command line. Just like make it, maybe let's have like 2 shells instead of 15. And just one,
to your
one
point,
way of
I think
doing
this
things.
is definitely, I know maybe we'll talk about Windows a little bit later, but like Windows and Mac as well. It's like this, like you kind of, now that you've touched it, or now I've touched it, it's like, this is what you want built in, right? You just want, and in fact, maybe you shouldn't call it the terminal, because that may be, kind of scare people off. It's sort of like, oh, I just want to like talk to the computer to do stuff, right? Where it's just
it's
like
a chat window to your computer.
Yeah, and it's just like I just want to ask it because other stuff you can do in it is just like find all because stuff that you can do. Of course, you can do all of this today, but it's just sort of like, hey, like find all the large files on this computer for me, and it'll just kind of do it. And behind the scenes, it like basically creates the big script and runs it for you, right? Or do this, and it's just like that's what normal people want to do. It's like, I mean, I always kind of joke. It's like, configure my computer so I can have a Zoom meeting. You know what I mean? Like and that's what everyone has like certain, not people listening to this podcast, but others, right? Our friends and family. It's like, you have to click on the audio settings and then click on the microphone. And it's just like, just do that for the person, right? That's what they need to do. And it's like, and you're like, oh, this is a lot easier. And it isn't like, and it's kind of interesting with the Mac, they have the new liquid glass thing. Sounds like it'll be cool. I'm sure we'll like it. I'm sure we'll talk about it, but you're like, oh, actually it is better just to have this chat app and I can just like speak normal language to this computer and it will just do everything. That's actually a lot better than any of the beautiful, like if you will, glossy new UI.
I think what we really need to do is get ahead of this and come up with a new name for this shell. We've got our bash, we've got our corn shell.
Okay.
We need. I mean, if there's anything this podcast is good at, it's branding. And so we need to get ahead of this curve, right? Because you see efforts around it already. You've got like the warp stuff. You've got different CLIs that are trying to inject AI into it. But we need to come up with.
We did. Want to jump in here. I'm going to correct the listener who recommended warp. His name I cannot remember now, but he rescinded his warp. And I will say this: listen, I use warp a little bit. I don't know. Didn't hit for me. I'm like, skip that and use Claude Code or this Gemini CLI. I think they're both like.
Yeah. So Brandon, I'm one thing that I haven't heard you say this week is cursor. So I noticed I saw in the Reddit cursor channel is like 99% people bitching about cursor's business model change.
I gotta be honest, like I feel I'm with them. I mean, I was like, first of all, we all have to get on the Claude gravy train. I think I spent $20 for the month. Like I have used so many more tokens on Claude than I have ever used and probably anything. Cause it's like, once you get in there, it's just cause it shows you the count as it's doing it. And somehow it's unlimited this cannot last. I mean, I don't know.
This cannot last, which is what happened with cursor.
With cursor. Right? Yeah. So now's the time. You got we have to always be moving ahead. It's like, cursor is like, they're too popular. They're making too much money. And now people are like, hey,
well, they're not making
bills?
money.
Yeah. That's the problem. I guess they're like, great, the revenue's up, but we're losing $5 for every $1 we make. So you got almost to jump off the cursor bandwagon. Now we have to jump on the Claude bandwagon. And then, of course, we always have our friend Gemini because they're always like, we have infinite money.
Yeah, there's an advertising money fountain. Advertising on the web will never go away.
You've been watching. You've been searching for a long time, and you built up a big credit over here. So you can always go to Google. Google never times me out. Google has never told me like.
Google has never ended a product that was loved by many.
No, another story. But they don't care. Google will let you keep going with Gemini forever. ChatGPT, like 2 queries in, they're like, oh, can't use the good model anymore. Sorry, you have to like. Well,
yeah. So I mean, there are all these stories in that cursor Reddit about people are like, I had my credit card in there and I had to negotiate with the credit card company to reverse the charges because things jump from $20 to $120. They're changing what licensing you're set up.
It's bad on them. I think the CEO. I think we put a link in here somewhere. But I think I mean, not that this helps anybody with the bill, but I think the CEO apologized. I don't know if that I don't know if that makes you feel better, but
yeah.
So what? They just raise prices? That's the problem.
No, they drop people from like a free tier into a paid tier, and you were on this like $20 a month thing, and automatically switched over to like a pay as you go. Or
they did like the Columbia Music House business model, like
Well, I will say this
every time.
Old friend of the show here, Cote's Stephen O'Grady. He dropped his trademark 3,000 words about what is it called AI tooling, and if I could summarize the entire thing, it's sort of like, well, like people will pay if it's really good. That's sort of like his. I mean, I think that's the whole. Maybe that's the biggest takeaway from all of this is like coding.
Said every business owner ever.
Coding has changed forever. No one is going back. Like you use these tools, no one is going back. So I don't know how we're going to pay for
I don't
them.
know, Brandon. I don't know. The reverse theory also holds true. Software developers don't like paying for anything.
I think it's different. I think this case, this
They're
saves
not
you
software
so
developers?
much time. I think I'm gonna take you, Matt. I think that's the second commandment. I'm gonna give you the first commandment of software developers. Software developers are lazy, and it's this, my friend. All of the drudge work of god awful JSON parsing, configuration. Finally something that get all of that. This Coach, this is back to your dream. Get all of this stuff out of my way. I'm trying to build a business application and I do not want to mess with it. And all of these AI tools are so helpful doing that. No one's going back, right? People will whip up their credit card and use it themselves for a while. I mean, at least until it gets where it's tens of thousands of dollars.
I mean, but the persistent corollary to that is who pirates the most stuff because they're too cheap to pay for streaming, even though they're making, 6-figure salaries.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. I mean, obviously, that's the whole question. I mean, and in the end, I guess maybe it's Google, maybe it's others. Does someone finally figure out the business model where it's you can basically somehow, use this for free?
It's probably Microsoft
ads,
because they've already got the enterprises on the hook.
I'll say this though, many people keep telling me GitHub Copilot. They're like, you gotta try it out more. I'm like, I'm not feeling it. I know everyone's like, oh, it's just as good. I'm like, I don't think it is just as good. So maybe it'll eventually get there. But the Copilot seemed like at least at this point, they were in the lead. I think they have completely, missed out.
You think they had their one shot and now it's over? I
don't know. I mean, never count out Microsoft. In 10 years, right? They'll be talking about, end of life in Copilot, and there'll be 8 billion users. So I never count them out. But right now, I think they're gonna have to. Someone's gonna buy Cursor, if nothing else, for the customer base, right? That's gonna be.
But did they already walk away from their $10 billion acquisition? Are they gonna be like Docker? We could have been there. We could have been. Oh geez.
The other one that got bought.
There's so many, right? There's so many.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's definitely possible. They're the ones there, but I think it's. I think now they did see in the now that we're tracking AI people athletes, I did see where Cursor hired some of the Claude Code people. I think it was their product people. So maybe that's the next move. Maybe they're going to be like what I was saying before. They're like, Claude is great. The command line is really good, but it would be nice if when you wanted it, had a very beautiful UI experience. Now I think that I'm here for that. I'd like that.
I want to jump back in I think was it you, Matt, suggesting that we need to reinvent the command line? And I have two thoughts there to really just beat this horse in the glue and then re-moisturize the glue and reuse it. I think one, I think the idea of what would it look like? I'm going to be the ideas guy here. What would it look like if I said I was texting with my computer? Maybe I get some tap back emojis when I confirm something. I'm just heart, love that. Thanks for telling me the big files. And I can communicate in this kind of texting interface. And I know it's not that far of a thing from what a shell does, but it's just this other mentality. Because you think about texting, it's a pretty primitive way of communicating, right? Yeah. And the command line is primitive, doesn't mean to be judgmental. It's the raw essence of communication. There you go. That's what it is.
What I'm hearing, Cote, is you just made the pitch John Ivey made, and you're $1 billion less into this so far.
That's right. I'm
we're gonna reinvent it, and they're like, how? And he's like, just buy me, and I'll tell you.
I'm basically remember that Johnny Ive thing, no screen, except imagine that, but you have a keyboard and you have a screen.
No, voice.
That's what I'm going for. No, but that's my
voice
pitch.
And screen.
Yeah.
Coach, if I could, let me just jump in here. Real-time feedback. Absolutely. You can use emoji with Claude. I was just doing it here. I asked Claude, and so right now I just hearting. I'm gonna heart its response to me. So it's done. Just install it. You just go emoji crazy. I think you can only use emojis. Maybe that's the next level. I will only use emojis when interacting with Claude.
I think maybe an underappreciated long-term effect of second wave DevOps is that if emojis are involved, you will get funded. And if you're funded,
I like it.
You have a chance to succeed. So really emojis, I don't know if the YC people need to get this, but maybe they should start measuring the amount of emojis in the pitch, not only the pitches, but in the actual applications. Like, can I communicate only through emojis with whatever this thing is that helps me like drop ship cucumbers in Iowa, right? Like whatever wacky YC idea you're coming up with, it's got to be done through an emoji interface.
Just to give you an example, I sent it the heart emoji, and then it sent me the heart emoji back, which I believe is maybe the most expensive heart emoji that's ever been printed on a computer. Because I don't know how many tokens, it went too fast, but it was like probably a couple 100,000 tokens to like come back with that emoji. So there you go. Yeah. You know, that don't feel like you can't overuse Claude. So I'm sure some poor product manager or finance person is like, do you know how much money we just spent putting one heart emoji back for Brandon? That was $10,000.
Yeah,
you know?
and there's an article that's going to show up in the New York Times about man being in love with CLI.
That's true. Oh, that's true. Well, I hope they interview me. I feel like this is a genre we're creating right here.
Yeah. I use the God shell. That's what we need to introduce here. Well, in equally exciting news, it looks like I think, how long ago was it, Matt Ray, that you were tracking when the version of Windows was going to come and go? I think we were counting Windows down 10? To a big moment. Yeah. And you're like, support is going to run out. And the next day, if the world is still here, then we will all be in our new Windows world. I think that threshold was crossed recently. Yeah. And so now it looks like, this sounds kind of shitty, but I don't even know what the current version of Windows is. Do they use
Windows
years,
11
letters?
Here, let me give you a quick stat from the article. Here was Windows 11 as the most used desktop operating system nearly 4 years after its release, with 52% of market compared to 44.59% for Windows 10. So it took them 4 years to get to 52%, and really just under half are still using Windows 10, which of course has already been announced as end of life. So there you have it. There you have the Windows people.
Is the market here Windows or all desktop operating systems?
This is just Windows.
Okay. Makes sense.
But it does 85% or something like that.
For sure. I was presenting from a Windows machine today under duress because the HDMI ports were not working. Oh, I don't know if you two have this. Isn't this the worst? Like you've done your slides, everything's great. You've even got a killer font that you're using or typeface. And then all of a sudden you've got to present from a Windows machine. And you're like, God damn it. I, as you say, I crossed the Rubicon of using emojis in my presentation, and now I'm getting fucked by Windows again. Like, because those emojis look a lot different on Mac than they do on a Windows machine.
You're gonna send me into a tailspin rant about how much I love Keynote and how I can never use Keynote.
That Keynote is like Dev One, like Wave One DevOps. Keynote everywhere.
Keynote is so lovely.
Yeah. It's the exquisite PowerPoint.
Is Windows? I guess my question on the Windows is like, is it the ultimate default software? Like, because I actually think Windows is like, if you're using Windows, you're either in a captive audience like you just described, or you're sort of, a worker that's uses a computer to get their job done, not interested in computers. And I think that group of users, like, they actively do not want anything to change. Right. They don't want anything. They want nothing to change. And if you change something, no matter how good it is, it only creates frustration. So I think it's like, it is the ultimate product of like, no, the goal is to meet and not change anything. Like, don't move the people, like they want to move. We should move the start bar to the middle. No, you shouldn't. People are going to be angry about that, right? Like, we should change the control panel. No, you shouldn't. This could be a job I'd sign up for. They would just come to me with ideas. I'd be like, no, we should keep it exactly the same. That's exactly what we're doing.
So I'm not using Windows, and I agree with you completely. Like, anytime I run into a Windows user in like my professional environment, I'm like, why? In our roles, we've got choices. Why have you chosen this? But I've got to assume that Windows is going to be shipping classic mode forever, right? I assume it's in Windows 11 somewhere. I stopped using it, but it's got to be in there, right? Like, you can always go back to having your start menu on the bottom left. Is it still there?
It's a good question. I don't know. I would assume there must be a
Or
setting
are we?
to turn
Are
that
none of
off.
us are captive to the default?
No,
We've
I'd
chosen
have to
a
look at
different
my,
default.
my
I
wife's
don't know. They
computer
got
and see.
they got some kind of fucking button down there in the left
Oh,
corner.
I know there's
They're
the
doing
middle
something.
button, but everyone still hates that, and so I assume
That's right.
they're still
Windows is always
shipping the
giving you the
classic
middle
one.
button. That's the.
But it's not just. I also think it's like.
Oh yeah, because they have
Excel's-
that little lozenge instead of start. It's like a little
Yeah.
thing.
But then
Anyways, I
within
interrupted you.
in the Windows world, there's also the ultimate default. Like Excel's the other one. It's like people do not want Excel to change, especially like the heavy
No.
accounting, finance people. It's like, no, do not. They're like, we added a new thing. Don't do that. We
Well,
took away
yeah, I
hotkey.
mean-
Don't do that. Changing a hotkey preference on an Excel, it's like you might as well just take down the entire internet for a day.
I mean,
it's
the
like, I
ribbon
can't believe
mode,
they
like,
did this.
you know, if there had been a viable alternative, the ribbon mode would have ended Microsoft.
Yeah, it's like, and it's so. It
But
is,
there
it's
wasn't.
such a-
So, suck it. Oh wait, here's classic mode.
But it is in some ways it is such a genius business model for Microsoft. It's like, yes, Azure, and like everyone's always talking about, the new CEO came in, changed everything. It's like, yeah, but Windows is still kicking off so much money, and like,
Yeah, but
no one has to work
it's
on it.
slowly dropping. Yeah.
Sure, slowly dropping in the sense of like, listen, and of course, like, don't get me started. The gamers, right? You always got another people are like, what about the new generation? They're learning out of it, learning Windows because that's their gaming machines.
No.
Yeah?
See, like because of like Steam OS, there is a sliver of hardcore gamers who are learning Linux just for gaming, and
That
like
is tiny compared to the
It's
world
tiny.
of gaming is on Windows. I mean, that's the
the
vast majority.
handheld decks have picked up, and then people are like, oh wait a second,
No, Ray, we've lost you. You're out. You're far out. You're in Emacs land. You're in a world with people like, I know those people exist.
It's
but there's very
lovely.
few of them.
It's faster.
Listen,
Yeah, all
I'm
you
glad
gotta
you
do
like
is
your
tell 'em it's
world.
faster.
That's not where the regular people are not there. They're using Windows to play games.
They're coming. They're coming.
Well,
Probably not.
I want to bring some attention to. I think that the two major, my shoes aside, the two major discussions we had here were about computer interfaces that have basically remained unchanged for several decades. We got the command line over here, which is pretty much the same thing from when like I was doing shit on a AS400 back in 1992, more or less,
Man.
right? Maybe when you press like a delete key, it doesn't do like *D anymore, which is a great improvement. Love that. But then you also have Windows, which also is kind of similar to when I was doing shit on an AS400, right? It doesn't really, and not to mention spreadsheets. Like, it's true. Like, I've seen people have to transition from PowerPoint to Google Slides, and they're just like, I'm considering suicide. Kind of how it works out for them.
Can't do it.
I hear you. I'm watching it. Yeah.
And so there is so my question of that is like, so first we had the command line where we're just like, this is like the second coming of Christ over here about to happen from the command line. Just emerge from it. It's going to be awesome. And then we're over here with Windows, and it's kind of, we're not quite so enthusiastic about the Windows thing. But it makes me think, so if no one wants your software to change and they keep using it, is this the greatest success or the most existentially depressing commentary on your software?
Oh, Cote.
maybe
You've
though-
unlocked the second one.
But as I say, but maybe like we really just have to link the two. It's like I was saying before, like don't change Windows, but maybe what they need to introduce this window is just we'll call it the command line or the chat, where it's just like, we changed nothing, but if you have a question about anything about your computer, just type it in here. Or you want your computer to do anything, just type it in this box. That's it. That's the only new thing. Oh, I want everything the same. It's like everything is 100% the same. But if you have a question or you just want to tell it to do something, type here. And that may be so maybe that's the whole thing. Windows has lived through the arc, right? It has gone from, I think, was it like 1990? I don't know, 90-ish when it came out. It's like it has made it to the full circle, right? Where it's almost like you're now sentient. Like, you know what? We don't have to change anything, but you can just tell it to do stuff in this box, and everything is the same. Nothing
Brandon.
changed. That's a good 50-year arc
Brandon.
for software.
You can't spell Clippy without CLI.
Sometimes
Yeah.
we work hard on the show titles, and sometimes the show titles find us.
But I mean, like Kote touched on this. This is like the depressing arc that I think we've entered with AI. Is you see all these companies, they're announcing big layoffs because they're going to use AI to replace everything, while everyone kind of agrees like AI is putting out kind of crap, and we're talking about software that never changes. And so I think what we're entering into is like this rent extraction mode for a lot of software where they've locked something up, it works well enough. You know, we could talk about the ribbon mode, we could talk about, you know, the button going in the middle of the screen, but really nothing's changed that's really relevant to users in 30 years.
Well,
and
I would say this though. I'll just say in a more optimistic tone, just for the sake of argument, is sort of like I would say like productivity has increased quite a bit. Like these tools, and I think that's the biggest thing. Is like when you start to like really use them, and coding's the best example, but we've talked about a bunch of others. It's like, man, everybody can be so much more productive with this stuff. Which hopefully, kind of back to like Kote's thing, it's like hopefully it's not just developer toil, but it's like all the work toil we do, right? All this crazy crap we have to do. And it's like, yeah, if we could just get rid of all that, even for the knowledge workers just struggling to get like their Zoom calls set up and their Windows machines maintained, and like, losing, managing disk space. It's like these tools can take a lot of that work away. And hopefully that allows us to be more productive, and hopefully people can go do more stuff, better stuff that's more creative than like, if you will, managing their Windows desktop.
Yeah. And at the bottom of this rabbit hole, Linux is looking you back and saying, "Welcome to gaming on Linux."
Maybe so. Hey, I don't
because
know.
you'll just
I
be
have not
like,
touched gaming on Linux. I don't know anything about it. I'm
It's
afraid.
awesome.
Right?
It's great. Bazite is a purpose-built OS for nothing but gaming. So so literally you could just be like, I want you to have the optimized drivers and settings for me to play this at 2K at 60 frames per second. It's like, I'm done, right? If we can get there and the building blocks are in place.
Well, listen,
it sounds like Claude Code could do that for you.
Well, I was going to say, Matt, here there is hope. So behind the scenes of here, Software Defined Talk, I'm going to reveal something. So last week I did an interview with Victor. Hopefully everyone enjoys it and learned about WASM. But nonetheless, when we're recording, he gets on. He's like, I'm recording this on Linux. I got the audio to work on Linux, and I was like, you, my friend, maybe the smartest person I've ever known. Like you, in fact, I was even a little worried for the podcast. I'm like, I don't know if we can have. I don't think I've ever had any. I know I've never had anyone using Linux audio on the other end of a podcast. I was like, but we did it. I think it sounded great, and I was like, you are a legend in the world of podcasting. You may be the first person ever. Maybe Brian Cantrell and the people over at Oxide, maybe they did it, but it's like it's a very small group of people that actually can record their audio on a Linux machine and have it come out well. So
it's true.
So if that can happen, there probably can be gaming on Linux.
I think that's a little known thing about Oxide lore, is that the whole company started because they were trying to make it easy to do a podcast on Linux. and they got working in the internals. They were like, it's a hardware issue. It's all about like heat transfer. And next thing you know, you're building like your own hardware.
And they threw their hands up in the air and they're like, back to open Solaris.
yeah.
Exactly.
Which they're shipping. Yeah.
Well, speaking of things that you get back to, no matter how much Claude Code you have, or no matter how much gaming on Linux you're doing, there's always bureaucracy. Right, Brandon? Do we have any this episode?
We do. I want to let you know that I sent some stickers to Patrick. He's not far from you, Coach. He's in the Netherlands. He's in the town known of, I'm going to try to say it here, Tilburg. You know where that one is? It's not too far. It looked like it was on the map. Yeah. It wasn't too far from you. So thank Patrick for writing in. And of course, if you would like a sticker, all you have to do is send your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. Happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world.
Maybe my bike will no longer be the only one that advertises this fine podcast. It'll be great. There's another one in there. Goes good on the rear fender. Well, there are now many conferences to go over. I think we had a few weeks where there weren't a lot. Now, of course, we've got Spring One coming up in Las Vegas, August 25th and 28th. Also, going concurrently with Spring One is Explore 2025. You may know Explore as VMworld. It was called that for a long time. And then there's also, I'm going to be speaking at SRE Day London on September 18th and 19th, which will be fun. That's always a great conference. Nice theater that they have it at. There's also on August 8th, you've got the Sydney Wisdom Meetup. Those whiz marketing people, they never sleep. They're always
sleep.
They're always working. They're always doing it. They don't need no Claude command line.
I'll be there.
Yeah, and Matt Ray will be there. If he wants to keep his job, if there's a whiz meetup in Australia, I think he's going to be there. That's like I was channeling my dad there. That was great. Nice to visit with him momentarily. Anyhow, there's also the Civo. Or how do you say it, Brandon? Civo. They've been advertisers before.
That's right.
So
That's correct.
Yep. The Civo Navigate London. I'll be speaking there as well, September 30th. There's an evolving theme in the conferences that I go over in this podcast. To break that theme, there's also the Texas Linux Fest, which is going to be October 3rd and 4th. Matt Ray's been to it many times. Their CFE closes. Their CFE closes on August 3rd, so you still have a chance if I've got my calendar right. I think July is before August. Last I checked,
still is.
So you're still good there. And there's also Cloud Foundry Day in Frankfurt. Their CFP is closed, but that's going to be October, which is the other August, October 7th. And then finally, I'm really excited. I'm going to be speaking at AI for the Rest of Us in London, October 15th and 16th. Now, what's special about this conference? One, I think I've commented this. Well, yes, Matt Ray, of course. That was going to be the last thing. So thanks for ruining it. But
that's number one.
I've tried to on our other software defined podcast, software defined interviews. I've had a couple of British people on, and most excitedly, I had Abby Bangser on, who is a longtime American who's lived in Britain. And I try to ask them what is up with how cute UK tech people are. There's like something going on there that's different. Their whole take on things is some sort of thing. And I think this conference is a good example of that. If you go look at AI for the Rest of us, it's like this conference would not happen in America, right? This is very particular to what's going on in the British tech world. So anyways, it'll be fun to go there. And also, I think the thing that's endearing about it is it's not part of their code of conduct, but almost part of their code of conduct that I had to agree to when I accepted the talk was that you understand this is not a conference where you're going to talk about programming and technical things. It's for normal people, which I think is an interesting take to have the speaker has to agree to that, which, as we know, any checkbox that you have to click on and then you click a button that says accept is just a history of problems people have had in the past is what's going on there. So it's fun to think about what happened last year. Now, speaking of things that happened last year, what's your recommendation for this episode, Brandon?
All right, my recommendation this week is something I discovered. I feel like I should have known it before, but it's hyper local here. So if you need to park in Austin where they charge for parking, it turns out there are free codes. So if you use the Park ATX app, there are two codes you can use anytime, I guess, for free 15 minutes. So surprisingly enough, the code is free 15 ATX1 and free 15 ATX2. So if you find yourself, I just have to run in, grab something, I'm not going to be here that long, you can get yourself a free 30 minutes of parking. And I wish I had known that a long time ago. So there it is.
Did you try free ATX 90?
I haven't. Now I'm sure somebody will, but I guess the story.
I'm just saying that you
probably could be hacked. It could be hacked. I guess someone said one of the police. They were there or something, and the police were like, you can just do this. They just kind of volunteered it. So it's like, yeah. I was like, oh wow. So again, I don't know. I guess there's no incentive to advertise this, but if you're in Austin, I think that's really convenient for having to go downtown, especially again, I always get so frustrated when you just have to. Maybe there's it's just like an airport test where it's like, do you like to get to the airport early or late? I really can't leave the car, even if it's only going to be a few minutes. I feel like if I don't pay for parking, I'm going to get towed. I feel it's like getting to the airport earlier. So if I'm not there, it just creates too much anxiety. Whereas other people just be like, it's fine.
Yeah.
How likely am I going to get a parking ticket? It's probably low. Ooh. But anyway, nonetheless, this code will alleviate it for 30 minutes. And then of course, if you're on the app, which is even better, you get the little reminder and you can just be like, okay, now I'll just pay for the parking. So all of that is a nice little digital transformation here in Austin, Texas around parking.
Yeah, that's good stuff. How about yourself, Matt Ray?
I finally finished. I finally got my copy from the library and read the Careless People book about Facebook, and Facebook's just as horrible as you probably thought. So the book is very well written. It was definitely engaging, moved fast, and lots of anecdotes, probably mostly true, based off the reaction from Facebook. But ooh. Maybe we shouldn't do social media. That's all I'm saying.
Well, more importantly, Matt,
Yeah.
did you return that in Libby? Because I think I'm on the wait list. So maybe did you already? Did you return the borrowed copy? You know, God
You,
forbid
you
I
need to
buy
do
one
some
of these.
synchronized
Yeah.
things where Brandon waits for Matt Ray to
No,
signal.
I
he's
know.
returned
When this
it and
came
you
out,
refresh.
Matt and I talked about it. When this came out, we both added it to the Libby. I
No,
think we're both,
Brandon,
what'd
you're opening a fresh wound.
oh, sorry. What happened?
My weird e-reader that I bought like 6 years ago. The company went out of business. I kept just rocking the Kindle app, and Amazon finally dropped support for the version of the Kindle app. So I can't check out library books on my e-reader anymore. I can buy stuff,
sad.
of course, but
Sadness.
no library books.
Sad for you.
Yeah.
No.
So I may be on the market for a cheap large screen ebook reader. If
Are you
anybody
a
has
Kindle person? What are you again? You're
Well, probably half the stuff I read is not from the Kindle store. So I'm reading like EPUBs and PDFs,
all right.
and so I want
Here it
something
is right
that,
now. The newest one. It's Prime Day, Matt. $124.99. It's that's $30 off if you're looking
I
for a
literally
Kindle.
have like 3 or 4 Paperwhites. I want a big screen. This is a 10-inch screen, the one I was using. So
right.
it's a big screen.
All right, we'll
If
see we
only
can-
there was
we'll-
a company that made a large, thin screen that perfectly synced with the entire rest of your life and the world, the way that the world does software. It would be.
Well, Matt, they do
don't-
have the Amazon
It's not the big
Fire.
screen Kindle. It's not the big screen Kindle.
Matt, they
But-
have
but
the
then-
Amazon Fire HD tablet. That's 10.1 inches. That's
I want an
$69.
e-reader. I want an e-reader.
All right.
not
Okay,
a
yeah,
tablet.
that's fair. That's fair.
All right, fair enough. We'll keep working. We'll keep looking.
Get back to me on that.
Yeah, I like. Well, oddly enough, I think my recommendation, which I uncharacteristic for me, I thought of before we were doing this episode, is I want to recommend the Wizard Zines bundle. I hope I'm saying her name right, by Julia Evans, and it's a little pricey, but all of you nerds, you have money. It's $150, I think, but you get titles such as The Secret Rules of the Terminal, How Git Works, How Containers Work, How DNS Works, Bite-sized Linux. Anyways, you get all this stuff that I'm always like flummoxed by, and written in a hand-illustrated zine format, telling you how like Awk and Sed work and what they're for, and it's quite delightful. It's enjoyable, and I think most of it's also available for free on her blogs if you want to read it. But anyways, it's you can load it up on your non-existent EPUB reader, and
Can't put it on your
down.
Kindle. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. But it's fun stuff. It's good PDFs to look through. It's like it's a style and tone from the command line that I don't think I've ever encountered, which is fun, happy, and joyful. I think is what's there. Well, speaking of things that are fun, happy, and joyful, you've listened to another episode of Software Defined Talk. Now, if you want to get the show notes for this episode, links to everything we talked about, probably most everything, and many of things we didn't talk about, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/528, because that's the episode number. You can also join our Slack channel, which there's enough. There's a fair amount of people, a fun amount of people, I'm going to put it that way, talking on there about things. And I realized something, a feature that we have at the Software Defined Talk Slack channel, which you can join by going to softwaredefinedtalk.com/Slack, is because, well, let me put it this way. We have invested in an approach, a policy at Slack, that your messages will be auto-deleted at some time in the future. Yeah. So because of the decisions that we've made at a very high level, you do not need to worry about archival nature and concerns about the messages that you have in there. So you can feel a little bit freer and you shouldn't be an asshole, but you won't have to worry about deleting everything because it will be done for you eventually.
Yes. I was in a meeting the other day where somebody was like, let's all Let's all post our comments on Slack. Let's see if we can break Slack. And I literally laughed out loud. And I was like, you're not going to break Slack. We've tried.
We've been at this for
We're
years.
still trying. Yeah. Well, speaking of, why don't we wrap up the episode so all the listeners can go and try to break Slack? That would be good stuff. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, good episode as always. Cote, I was looking at your recommendation here. I was like, I wonder if I printed out a PDF that just was sort of like, type it into Claude Code, and that was the only thing I put in it. Like, do you think I could charge for it? That was like, so I feel like I was looking at this. I was like, yeah, this is some good stuff. But I would just ask Claude to do all this work for me now. So that's that's interesting.
I hear you.
Interesting to see how I like it though. I like her little like animations here, if you will, little almost like cartoons, or what do they call them? Not cartoons. I don't know. Cool. It's cool though.
It is good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for everyone hanging in there. Good to see Michael, Darth Vikes heading on as well. So always good. We will likely record next week, 1 hour later, wherever you are. That way Matt Ray can get a little extra sleep, and yeah, he can be his hot takes can be even more fresh and hot. So with that,
well-rested hot takes.
With that, we will talk to all of you next time. Take care.
Toodaloo.